Okay, well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the JETSON AI Lab Research Group. The date is May 1st, and our mission is to enable cognitive AI and get that out into the hands of everybody, into the hands of developers all over the world. And thank you so much for everybody who's been collaborating either on like the forums or GitHub. It's been a very, very active few weeks, and I think we're all pleased with like the progress we've made, not only in like Home Assistant project with Mieszko and Nabu Casa and all the speech and TTS integration that we've done. But also like in the past couple of weeks since we've met, Drew to form, things have changed drastically with the LLMs, and Llama 3 is out, Phi 3 is out, and Llama 3 in particular did seem to be a big step up in terms of its not only its coding ability, but just like interactively, it is a very friendly model and is great to chat with. And obviously they are heading in like the personal assistant angle with it because it is a lot more friendly than other models tend to be. And then Phi 3 came out last week as well. And even since then, like fine tunes and little vision language models are popping up for these like every day. So you guys probably saw the I put out a video on Monday about doing this function calling in Nano LLM, which I'll bring up the docs for that real quick so we can walk through that before we get into things here. Sorry, 1 second. This had been a long-running request that in the first meeting, we talked about the controller LLM, right? And we're like, well, we really need function calling in order to do that. And so that ability is in there now. And it works pretty easily. You just go in, put this like decorator on whatever function that you want, and then add info about the function to the bot's system prompt, like you see here. And then you can enable the bot to actually call that. Let me make this bigger for you guys so you can actually see it on the screen share here. Okay, so in this example, I have these like date, time, location, weather ones just for like a demo. I'm not like actually trying to make like a weather bot here. And we see like it actually called the function as I instructed it to. It went out into the like AccuWeather API, inserted that text back into the chat, which you can do just using like this generation API here. This was the feature that was actually added. This new like functions member of the generate call here, which it just takes a list of callable functions, and those get called with the latest text that the LLM generates. And then it's up to you to like do regex or whatnot on that, which that is essentially what this bot function decorator does. If you go look into the source code for that, it just takes this function name, makes a regex for it, continually checks the bot output to see if it called that. If it does, it invokes this function pointer and then adds the text back into it and then continues the generation. Alvaro, did you have a question, buddy? Oh, what JETSON is it? This is running. This is just running on the JAO on AGX right now, but this would run on like the Nano, and it's just because I use that on a daily basis. Let's see if we can get it to like save my name here. Okay, so and this was actually like the more critical part to this is like, can it do self-learning? And if you instruct it that it has access to a vector database and RAG, will it like automatically save personal info that you give about it? And it does pretty like reliably actually. And there's just like, you can go in here and see all the stuff that it saves about you. But next, I hope to integrate this with like the vision language model stuff, AlVIT, and just use this to like control the whole system essentially, and just go through and build out more and more functions like this. The other thing that this save one proves is that it can do parameterized ones, although in Python functions, the more complex they get, the more confused it gets. So there definitely is a limit to the intelligence of like this 8B Llama 3 model. And I was talking to somebody yesterday about there are like data sets for function calling, fine tuning, and there's the command R model that have been fine tuned on things. And that should help a lot. See if it'll call the locate. Yeah, so it does pretty good. Sometimes it gets like off course and just starts calling things incorrectly or like hallucinating that it called it. But what I noticed is that you can just like tell it to stop and like, hey, you're calling this wrong, do it right. And then it'll like learn to do that. And if we could extend this self-learning paradigm to that also and do fine tuning on collections of these logs of our chats with it, then it could converge on this more like personal assistant like behavior that we're going for. But at this point, essentially, like we should start going off and like building our respective agents for the different applications that we want to build, integrating it with Home Assistant. You can see like the full video here on the forums for this, but it's essentially the same thing. What I will say is like doing these experimental logs verbally where you're just chatting back and forth with it, it's a lot easier and lower friction than like typing it. Like you don't want to go back and forth and correct it all the time over keyboard, but if you're just chatting with it and can do that like back and forth verbal chat and be able to interrupt it and stuff, it's actually not that bad you could like do this a little bit every day with it and really get it honed in on the kind of behavior that you want. So yeah, at this, and I plan to add JSON to it also. That would just be like a different regular expression in there. I could show you the actual code for that. I think in the video I do that. But if you guys have any feedback on like additional features that this needs, essentially we are heading towards this like controller LLM direction with it, and hope that with the Home Assistant integration that we've done, that this will help to hook into that and be able to control the system. And we'd love just to like expose all the sensors in your Home Assistant network or all the like the actuators and sensors on your robot into the system prompt here. You can now go in and like make your own system prompt interactively, which like really helps to refine this and hone in on what you want, because it does take some tweaking to get it to do what you want, probably just because this is like the 7B 8B model. Let's see. Okay, here's a good question. Why are we doing nano LLM versus some framework like Llama Index? Which brings me to another point where we can jump to and discuss, which is new container updates that we have. We previously had LangChain, and we've been doing more in RAG stuff. And we have added, Chitoku actually did this Llama Index one this week because we now have Ollama, and Llama Index uses Ollama, and it's all like very easy to use text RAG, okay? And you can see like some Jupyter notebooks in here for this. You can point it to documents or PDFs or HTML sites and go and chat about that with it through like the open web UI and stuff. This is like the easiest way to get started with RAG for text, okay? And it's good with that, just like Ollama and Llama.C++. They'll give you 22.5 tokens a second on Llama 7B and good enough for chat, right? Well, when it comes to like the full-on multimodal stuff that we're doing, not only in Llama speak and back and forth image chat, but also extending to like the real-time multimodal and multimodal RAG and this really low latency verbal chat where like the ASR is interleaved with the LLM, which is then interleaved with the TTS and all the buffering in there. Like Llama Index and LangChain and all of those other frameworks like TextGen Web UI built around Grady, they are not geared for that level of low latency interactivity. Like our goal is to have a less than 1 second response time on things. So it's literally like you're chatting back and forth with the thing, which you see in the videos that I do. It's like you can cut the thing off. When I was talking about like, oh, it gets things wrong and you're correcting it and going back and forth like a couple times a second, that is all essential to like this experience. And I'm not trying to build out some like chat client here. This is just like a playground to experiment with these features before they get integrated into more like holistic agents like the live lava stuff, which eventually this will all get integrated with. And actually, the way I actually foresee this is, for those of you at GTC, you saw the demo that we had there was like it was a 4K display with 4 quadrants in it. And one of them was like this chat window, and then there was this window, and then there was the nano DB window too. So like all these different components of the system running simultaneously. There'll be like the home assistant panel in there too, all interlinked, like working together. And I think that's what you actually see. So at some point, like this chat client JavaScript UI will become the portal into the controller LLM that we'll build out. And then it will like interface with the vector DB, set the settings in there. It will interface with the Lava agent, the VLM stuff, and configure all of that. And this will be like the main verbal text UI for everything. But you're welcome to go off and like hack this up and do whatever you want. I'm not actually trying to make like an assistant chatbot or anything. Alvaro, you got any questions, buddy?
I wrote it down because I didn't want to interrupt the conversation. It's just that you showed a picture that caught my eye, which is like some kind of coffee or something, coffee can or whatever. And then I could not see it very well. But if what I'm trying to get is some kind of database of products that were trained into a YOLO model or something like that. Because what we are doing requires it. Otherwise, we would have to train models by ourselves with taking pictures of products, etc., okay, which is a pain in the neck. So, yeah. And tell me, please, that there is something like that. Tell me.
Yeah, I've seen some projects in the Hackster competition, which like we didn't even get to yet, and we should. So we had been running this AI innovation challenge with Hackster since like the fall, when we were just getting ramped up on Gen AI at the edge. And we announced the winners of this reason. There's some really great projects in here, including Dave Nowinski from the group and his GLaDOS robot, which is great. And there were some other ones in here too that did, like you were saying, they like trained a database of products in there. And the one of the ones that I really like is this eye for an item robot, which uses the NanoDB and vector databases to go in and like remember where items are around your house. So on one hand, yes, you could collect data sets and train like YOLO on it, or hopefully like NanoAl would be good enough for that. But if you're looking for like specific, like I want to detect a Sprite can versus a Coca-Cola can or things like that, in my experience from playing around with like the vector DB, like, sorry, this was a real extensive project, but this one was really cool because it'll map your house and also remember where things are in it. Wow. Okay. Let me sit down here. I forget where on this page it is, but he uses the NanoDB essentially to do zero shot, just like we did in that demo. And that might be the easiest way for you, Alvaro, just to like go snap and tag a bunch of pictures in your database of the items, and then it'll be able to recognize them. Otherwise, I would try like NanoAl, or barring that, like YOLO is still obviously very applicable. There were some other really cool ones in here too. This one was really cute. They like built their own little like demo conveyor belt that then like detected if each pizza had enough toppings on it, kind of like sorry, you probably can't see that as well, but essentially it counts like the number of toppings on there as like some quality control demo using I think it's like a NanoAl or detection like model. But there was a bunch of really cool projects to come out of this, which we'll add to the Jetson AI Lab pages and start looking at what they have. This one was really interesting. This one had come out before, which was why I added like the diffusion models as an interest in this research group, and essentially uses like a stable diffusion like model to do image processing, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because those models are able to do image to image manipulation, and it's just a model, a matter of what you train it on. And there are other groups within NVIDIA that have been like researching this as well. So on one hand, we have the vision language models that take in vision and take in images and produce text, but this, and also the vision transformers, right? But this one could be very useful for ones that actually like take in images and output images as well, as opposed to just taking in images and outputting bounding boxes or text or things like that. So at some point when we all get time, we'll have to like explore this more. And he has like the training scripts in here for like fine tuning these models, and it didn't seem too bad to be how it did. But if you ever want to do like super resolution or image enhancement or other like AR, VR type stuff, all types of things, anything that like actually wants to output an image into it, you could do it with that. And this could be a cool thing to integrate the controller LLM with also, in addition to stable diffusion. Because initially I was like, oh, we don't really need to optimize stable diffusion much for Jetson. But if like this thing, you could give it a generate image function and it can generate its own avatar based on like how it feels or like the temperament of the conversation so far, that could be a cool way to like add a face to this thing or whatnot. Okay.
I always thought that a great business would be a company that just takes picture of products so they can be identified at cashiers or something like that. So the entire world can move from having to use barcodes into actually showing the product.
Oh, I see what you're getting at. Yeah, well, I said that makes sense for your application because you're doing those smart trash bins essentially, and you want to identify all of the things that come in. Okay, before we move on, because I do want to give a lot of time to the other presenters that wanted to speak today. Is there any questions about this function calling or like features that you guys think you need or where we're going to head from here? Because I think now like this should really unlock a lot of behaviors for us, and it is documented in the model API here now that it just like takes this function list. So at this level, the functions that you pass into here should receive the entire output string of the bot so far. And then if you use this higher level decorator, that handles all the regex internally for that. So you can like look at that and see how it's actually done. And I just need to implement a different regex to do JSON or whatnot. But what I would recommend is start basic and like build things up from there. If you define like a whole library of functions with like 10 parameters in it, and it's probably not going to get it right off the bat because it's just 7B. But if you start small like I did and like build it up and understand like the capabilities that it has, obviously like we're going to have to get into like fine tuning here at some point and broach that ourselves to really get into it. But I think we should be able to essentially hook this into anything. I want to try to get this on a robot pretty soon. I would hope after we do some more enhancements with the vision language model stuff. But yeah, Brian, I think that this would be pretty useful for the assistant stuff that you're working on too. Okay, so at this point, let's transition over to talking about like the Home Assistant project, because that has continued to be going on and is like one of our biggest things so far. Let's see, I didn't get back to this message yet. It has been very busy in the past couple of weeks, thanks mostly to Mieszko, who's finished doing the Wyoming containers. And as we showed last time, we like actually have the Home Assistant core running on the Jetson. What he's done since then is finish the Wyoming containers for Piper, and the ASR open wake word, and some microphone assistant stuff. So these are now on like the actual homepage of JETSON containers. We'll hopefully start getting testing this soon. Ms. Ager, do you want to take over and show us how you do all this?
Yeah, let me try to
I'll
share
stop
my
sharing.
screen. Hello everyone, I'm Mieszko. So I skipped the Home Assistant stuff part, and what basically I did here is just ported the cool software to even better hardware. So later, Dusty was so kind to include me in those projects, and I landed here in the new row in the JETSON containers. I also prepared, where is that? In the Home Assistant core, I prepared Docker Compose for you guys to check it out, where everything is prepared for running all together on the one JETSON device. So I'm gonna deploy that to my Orin, and soon enough it will just pop itself here. So it's configured like every service is waiting for the required one for the dependencies, and it should start just in a minute. I know, Mike, that you are watching this, so just excuse me because
this is like your Docker Compose dashboard.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just Docker. So what you see here is just all of the containers I created for the Wyoming protocol. We still need to do one thing after deployment, which is just configure the add-ons here. We can't discover it automatically because I needed to skip the Home Assistant supervisor. So that's one issue what we got here. But beside that,
so that supervisor, is it just like launching other Docker containers underneath?
Yeah, it's pretty much, if I'm not mistaken, I just dig through the code a bit, just orchestrating them and exposes some UI to configure the options for add-ons.
We'll have to look at that down the road too, because I can do Docker in Docker in.
Oh yeah, I know that. It's not that simple, I guess. It's based on Debian, so there would be some things to support.
I can give you a hint if you're interested. The Home Assistant team says.
Oh, Mike.
Yeah. Home Assistant team says supervisor is everything that's not the operating system and not core.
Okay.
And core. Okay.
So it basically facilitates all the interaction between the OS and core.
Oh, okay. So it like configures the system for all that. Yeah. We'll have to take a look at that.
Does backups, all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
So with supervisor, you don't need to do all of that, but I hope the docs on the JETSON containers repository would guide you through all of that. So
yeah, thank you very much for that.
After configuring that, we pretty much could move to the voice assistants.
We have really zipping around here. See, thank goodness we have you guys who like already know Home Assistant. I will get into it more myself.
Don't worry, everything is described pretty much in the documentation. So what steps to take? Sorry, this one. What steps to take to configure everything? What environment variables do we have to use? What are the differences between the core on JETSON, which is this repository, this container, and default core? So basically, it's just Dockerized and has the voice assistant pipeline add-ons enabled. Yeah. So pretty much after configuring everything, we just need to update some configuration for voice assistant. Let's say it's JETSON. It should be English. Yes. And let's use Home Assistant. Faster whisper. English. Okay. Piper. And as a default, we have a different voice, I guess. Not the DB, US. Okay, and it's that one. And wake word. Okay, now. Perfect. And I just activated that. Perfect.
Sorry, I couldn't understand that.
So this is the configuration. And after doing that, we could see, for example, some dashboard. What was nice, I noticed that our Wyoming asset microphone container is also exposing some settings, and they are working. Beside that, I just throw away the supervisor, so that's nice. We can change the pipeline or mute the microphone. So yeah, we can ask for any command or issue any command. We can, for example, okay, Nabu. Okay, Nabu. Yeah, sometimes it could stuck. Let's check.
Did you switch the
It's okay.
pipeline?
I understand.
Yeah, probably I played a bit with mute button. So it's still experimental.
Does the pipeline need to go back to JETSON?
Yeah, well, not really. What I
Okay.
did here, this Home Assistant instance is running on my other device. So basically, you can just run Wyoming containers on JETSON to have the CUDA enabled support over there, and just use your default Home Assistant instance on the other machine. Yeah. So let's check the ping enabled. Should be ready. Okay, Nabu. What's the weather?
23.9 degrees Celsius and sunny.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Pretty much it works. It was some tinkering around. Obviously, everything
Can you get it to turn on your lamp?
Oh, yeah. Let's try that. Okay, Nabu. Turn on the lamp.
Turned on the light.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's
And like
working.
that's pretty responsive too. That's like a second or two. So yeah, it sounds good.
It is.
I think the main issue with this for like normal folks, even including myself, is like all the configuration, that even that you just went through all there to get it all working. But that's just like the system, and it's very powerful. So yeah, wow. Thank you for demoing all this to us.
So
And it's great.
yeah, so this could be a base for pretty much new experiments we could take together with Home Assistant. So in future, I hope to maybe launch that together with Nano LLM. Maybe use use some other add-ons like OpenAI connection, but changing the base URL, so we could use Nano LLM for that.
Yes, because when we initially started this about 6 weeks ago, since the beginning of this group, it was like we wanted to do essentially 3 phases to this. What you guys all see now is phase 1, which was rebuilding all the Home Assistant containers in Wyoming so that it could be run on the JETSON with GPU acceleration and integrate into the existing Home Assistant voice system, which we just saw is working. And we should all go out and like test this and make sure it's good before we share it more widely with the actual Home Assistant community. And yeah, I mean, based on that setup procedure, we should probably give it a good run getting the Home Assistant supervisor working too, because I don't know that your average user will be able to orchestrate all of that successfully and debug like why the wake word isn't working or like whatever. And we don't want them to have a frustrating experience. But then assuming like we made great engineering progress on all this, thanks to you guys, and like just looking under the Docker files for all this, like I would have never figured that out because I'm not an expert in Home Assistant. But then phase 2 was going to be to integrate with there's like an agent interface that Home Assistant exposes. And I think right now it's basically just doing intent slot classification like we would have done with BERT back when like NLP models were just getting big and doing like intent slot classifiers, which are really good for personal assistant devices, right? But that interface does expose like our ability just to add any LLM in there. So we could hook in the nano LLM stuff and generic function calling and all of that way. And then at an even higher level, we could use the Home Assistant REST APIs to like get the list of all the sensors and devices that you have, add them into the system prompt for Llama so that it knows what's available, so that if you just go and say, hey, turn the lights on, it automatically can figure out like, well, what's the device ID or whatever for that. Mike, what's your take on that and the direction we should head from here?
Yeah, I wanted to say, so we're in the process of working on a shared tooling infrastructure for those agents, so that different agents don't all have to recreate the same thing. I realize how they might have to do specialized things for their models or that, but getting available services in some reasonable function calling format and being able to call them out in kind of a safe and exposed manner. So I'd be very interested in people's thoughts on what sorts of tooling should be exposed to the LLM-based agents that would make it easy to grab stuff in Home Assistant and use it.
I guess from what I'd seen from the REST API that you had now, that looked like sufficient for what it would need. But like you said, we would have to go and like redo some of that. And obviously, like you guys are defining the agent APIs going forward. I know we've chatted about like the vision language model stuff too, which is really coming along. And we're working more with like video sequences with that now and getting it even faster. Like now we have it running up to like 7 frames per second instead of just 3. So I think that it would be really great for us to work together in this group as you continually like define those, like let's do all of this together so that we arrive at like the optimal solution and like integration, what each side needs for things. So
just as a small example, like if you call a service in Home Assistant for a particular device or entity, you have to provide its exact entity ID. And that's something that the LLMs seem to really love to hallucinate.
Yes, yeah. Well, and that's what I was saying. Like you just want to tell the LLM turn on the lights, and it won't. It might be able to translate that for you, but I wouldn't expect that. Given the LLMs that like we're running, right? We're not doing like the 70B. So Mieszko, you can go, buddy.
Oh yeah, Mike. Regarding that, I was wondering why just not connect the default behavior of the pipeline command, voice command in Home Assistant when you have a model which recognizes user intents, right? So before hitting the LLM with that command to turn on the light, we could just use that smaller, faster model to recognize the intent and just use that. And when we don't match any intent, we could just launch the LLM to just more naturally talk with the agents.
Yeah, that's so that this is exactly our plan to do a fallback.
Yeah.
So if the basic intent system that we have now is just text matching or template matching, it'll fall back to an LLM. But you still, I think as a first step, it might be better to have the LLM suggest intents that were recognized rather than service calls, because intents are much more generic and you can pass names, say, or aliases of things, and it can resolve those instead of IDs.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is like back in the BERT days when we were doing this, there would be a text classifier that sat in front, and that would either distribute to the intent slot or the general QA model. And like maybe we like get back to something like that. And I don't know to what extent the dedicated in what intent slot model are you using now?
This one is a basic template matcher, and we have people translating sentence templates.
Oh, okay. So it's not even using BERT or whatever.
No, this was
Okay.
targeted at running on a Raspberry Pi 3 or 4.
Okay. We could look at that too. I mean, BERT, for what it's worth, like with Xavier NX came out, and like that is what we were doing at the time, and the intent slot stuff worked really good for it. So we can, and I get that for those specific type of, you have kind of a specific set, a limited set of those commands that you want to be like real reliable for. But yeah, I think we should experiment. Like if we just give the LLM access to like set light, or here's the list of the devices and functions that you can do you need intent slot anymore? Or can it just go off and do those? And like it would just be like a prompt engineering exercise, really. Like at what level of detail can you expose to the LLM of the Home Assistant APIs in order for it to still be reliable? Yeah. Right now with the function call, I'm still being very basic with it.
And I'm suggesting that if we target those limited commands as the output of the LLM instead of service calls, we might get more traction immediately.
Okay.
You have to be less finicky with your prompt.
Yeah, I think that's the whole point, is to like not only reduce the latency to like a conversational level, which I meant to ask, you were going to bring up that like JTOP GPU utilization. In your experience, did you notice any performance differences or like responsivenesses in the system versus running the voice agent previously?
Well, not really. It was too lightweight for that hardware.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. Yeah, and that's fine, because like our value here with like, we don't want people to go all the effort to move to Jetson just for like ASR and TTS. ASR and TTS should consume less than 10% of system resources on the Jetson in order for it to be running the vision language model and LLM. And like that's why we're doing all of this. And our mission has been, so like you're naturally conversing with Llama or the agent as opposed to talking to it or speaking down to it like an Alexa like device. So yeah, Mike, if you're supportive of that, we can. What would be the best route to integrate like our LLM or Llama directly, as opposed to going through some like external APIs for this? I think I saw there's like a conversational agent API. Let me see if I can find that again, because it's probably what we'll start working on next.
Yeah, I will say that's in flux at the moment. As we're switching over. We're going to start.
This is kind of good. Like we're all kind of working on this together at the same time. So I hope we can do it somewhat in lockstep, where like we're here putting our best foot forward to like collaborate with Home Assistant project and like support all the open source stuff that everybody's doing, and like we've integrated with all the existing voice systems. We did not go out and like completely redo the whole thing. So I hope that the project founders understand that we want to like work together in a way that's good for like the Home Assistant community in general, just not making some like one-off agent thing. Because understand, like it's a very big community with users of varying levels of experience with systems. So like, yes, when we see to set up this voice agent running on Jetson today, there's like dozens of mouse clicks involved. That's probably a bit too much for your average Home Assistant user, and we need to spend time on like the supervisor thing. But that isn't to say, like, if we could develop these new agent APIs together going forward, I think that would be best for everybody, and us as like agent developers, and you guys as like providing the APIs for those.
I'd love to see personally some like a zero-conf service running on the Jetson. You have your Home Assistant, and you can install just discover the Jetson box and start using it as a
Yes, yeah. And
That
what
would be
would
cool.
we actually need to do? Because there's been a lot of talk about this supervisor and it being like not running on the Jetson, or I haven't dug into what actual platform requirements are there that make it so it's not possible. But I wondered if like you knew offhand what challenges there might be to porting that to a different SBC.
I don't. That would be the Home Assistant OS people that
Okay,
know more
okay.
about that.
Yeah.
I just
All right.
in my vision, I forget. So you're running everything on one box. I'm envisioning a split where Home Assistant's running somewhere else and talks to the Jetson remotely. But
Well, that can still be totally fine too. We don't want to
Yeah.
bite off more than we can chew here. Jetson can be the AI agent accelerator box that all lives on. If that's easier for everybody initially, if you're running the Home Assistant supervisor on the Raspberry or whatever that's running on currently, would that be able to discover these Jetson services?
yeah, so all you need to do
Okay.
is make yourself a zero-conf server and then on the Home Assistant side, the integration has a string that says, this is what I'm looking for, and the server is putting it out. It's really simple to do, and then
Yeah, okay.
then you can catch that in your integration and do your
It's just like when we're running on our tests now that are all running on Jetson all together, it has no supervisors, so it doesn't do all that zero comp. And Chris, yeah, I see what you're saying. Like I like the option of one box too, because we're all just like Jetson guys and coming from that side of things, but also understanding that like the Home Assistant community with like millions of installs or whatever has like all we should just like support both ways.
I mean, both is the right answer, because
Yeah.
whether you're installing new and you go, I've got a Jetson and it's more than capable of running everything, or like you're saying, I already have a Pi running Home Assistant, I just want to add an LLM to it. Those are both very valid installation, options.
Well, and it comes down to, for Nabu Costa, it's the amount of support. Like, so we don't have enough resources to support anything but a fixed number of devices. And also, at this point, with how quickly things are changing, it would be silly to try and create an AI-based product because next week it'll be outdated. So we envision the split as you can continue to run your Home Assistant and then change out the AI box as you have tens of thousands of dollars to do so.
That is one challenge that I see here, is it all is moving so quickly, and like you guys are defining the APIs, and like we're trying to integrate this. This was the conversation API that I mentioned, which you just said is like still in flux. So like, what can we work against now, or like when you guys make new dev branches for Home Assistant that have these new APIs, if you could shoot them to us so we can like be working on like the same thing as opposed to going off and doing our own thing, that would be great. I just want to know. Or then again, there's this whole like Olama integration that like we have Olama now, and can Home Assistant just use those models directly? How does that all work?
So an integration in Home Assistant core just needs a Python library to call out to something. And so that's what we did. Olama has a Python library, and it exposes an agent, which right now, like the agents are really, that interface has been around for a long time, and it's basically text to text. But with these new generative AI models, we might have image to text or text to data, or so that's what we're trying to figure out now, and we'd love to work with you to think about that.
Let's continue doing that, and ideally in some like open forum so that everybody can proceed. And I know like we had been chatting about the vision language model integration too, both from like a singular query, like the user asking a question about an image or video in their account, like, hey, when did the post office guy come? Or like it'll search back through your video history, summarization, and do all that. But I'm also thinking from like a continue, almost like the VLM is its own sensor and outputting change detection stuff that you can then trigger off of, that's just always on and always running, as opposed to like just you could have the voice assistant change the query that it's running, but like this thing should always be running in the background and adding event entries into the Home Assistant database, which then you can trigger other workflows off of. What do you think about that and how we could like integrate that? Because that we could do that pretty. We have all those capabilities on the VLM side.
I'd love to see these things exposed as like sensors in Home Assistant,
Yes.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
And we don't have the infrastructure for it yet, but this idea of sensor augmentation would be great too, that you get sensor data in and some lockstep, but you feed it to the LLM to get augmentation to it, a categorization or a, this is abnormal kind of thing. And that itself becomes a new sensor.
Okay. Exciting.
And that doesn't involve, chat bots or anything like that at all. So
no, it isn't. Yeah. And and as I said, it could be like you still want to be able to configure the thing through your voice. And I'll be doing like the same thing. So I think maybe what we continue to do is like through like the nano LLM and those agents, because my ultimate platform for that will be like a robot that's then roaming around and will be able to speak to the Home Assistant system through like REST APIs or whatever. But the robot will be its like own thing, right? And so we can develop and hone in these like higher level function calling, low latency agents that integrate with all the multimodal stuff. And while you're still defining and building out these APIs, or like if you wanted to use our stuff while you're defining those and like as your demo for that would be great. But like given today, like if I wanted to go in and integrate my function calling LLM today into Home Assistant, what would be like your API of choice for like, let's say we experiment over the next 2 weeks, what would you recommend?
I'd take the Olama integration, copy paste, and change all the names.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Let me note that down. We can start off from there. Okay. Cool. And I do remember the last time we talked about this in the controller, you were talking about like dynamically using RAG to put the functions in the prompt, which like I think would be a great idea for these more advanced Home Assistant setups. But yeah,
Cool.
okay, there was one question here. Does it work on JETSON Nano and Xavier or Xavier NX? I built it for Jetpack 5. Okay, so these would work for Xavier NX, although as I was discussing with Mieszko yesterday on GitHub, there started to be errors pop up on Jetpack 5. So everything newer is starting to get tenuous at best on Jetpack 5. This happens as newer Python functions newer Python packages keep coming out on pip, then things just start breaking because then they like stop supporting Python 3.8. But yes, it should work on Xavier NX. All of this stuff to get it to compile in Jetpack 4 for original Nano, it's not impossible, but it would be a lot of work to go back through and redo it. And plus, like the original Nano is EOL, unfortunately. As much as we would love to do this. And again, our real target for this is not just to do the speech, it's to do these high-end LLMs on it. And I think like we're messing around with Llama 3 and the function calling today, but we'll probably end up on like a command R or a model that's been fine-tuned for function calling. And I'm going to do a little bit more research into that for our next meeting to discuss like, has anybody here fine-tuned their own? Or in the first meeting we talked with Gary and Akash James, who had done such, but I think that is something that we're all going to have to become much more familiar with doing. And I don't really think it's that hard. It's just like, how do you jump into this and get the data sets right? And I think most of us on here probably fine-tuned our own CNNs and DNNs. And in theory, it's not any different than that. It's just like the data formats and it's bigger and different scripts, and we'll figure it out. All right. Well, thank you all. Does anybody want to speak about like what direction this project is heading in, or things that you feel that we need for this? I feel at this point like we have the function calling, we have the voice integration and all of that, and at this point it's more about like building out these agents and doing more experimenting with the prompt engineering and starting to use this all for like actual stuff that you guys want to do. For For me, much like Mosaic, this is like smart home stuff, little robots roaming around, learning about me and my family, being my friend, essentially, is what I've always wanted to do. But each of you probably has your own application ideas in mind that you want to do. And, you know, none other than Alvaro Costa, he wanted to share his smart refuse recycling bin, which seems really cool. You still there, Alvaro? You want to take over, buddy?
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you can hear me, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Costa. I founded a company called Tech and Trash. Just me and other two guys, so very small. The idea is that companies today, they need disposal data. They know they have everything, every data possible in terms of production and sales, but they don't know what happens afterwards. So the idea is to provide them with this data. I'll give you a quick corporate boring intro. If I sell 1 million bags, yeah, because otherwise this will not make sense. So bear with me.
No, and this thing uses like computer vision and JETSON in it and everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll show my setup after this boring corporate.
Okay.
Stuff.
All right. Okay. Go for it. Yeah.
So imagine I sell 1 million bags of this amazing new brand of dog food that I created, that I want to become a millionaire because this dog food is so amazing. And I sell 1 million bags in 1 day. Clearly, this thing is doing well. So I just wait, I guess, 1 month or whatever for the 1 million dogs to eat my dog food. And naturally, because I sold 1 million bags, I create another 1 million bags to sell it, correct? Correct? No, wrong. I didn't sell it to dogs. I sold it to supermarkets. I have no idea if dogs like my stuff. See, that this is how the mindset needs to change. How we are programmed to think that because something was sold, of course the consumer liked it. Of course the consumer consumed it. No, hold on. Just like if you produce something, you hope that you will sell it. If you sell something, you hope that it will be consumed. But if it's not, you can be sure this guy is not gonna buy it again. And then, so we tackle this problem. Consumer churn, people who don't like a product, and there's no visibility. There's no way to know. So for that, we created what we call a pod, which is a point of disposal, which is basically just like you have a POS that provides you with sales data, a pod provides you with consumption data. And we created this thing that, let me give you a little thing over here. Okay. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see a nano all the way here?
Not really. Is it on the ground? Oh, yeah, we see it now. Yeah.
Okay, great. There's a screen here. Okay. Over here, there is an Xbox 360. I don't know if you can see it. And over here, there is another Xbox One. And all this stuff is going to be here inside this ATM machine. Can you see it?
Where do you get an old ATM machine?
I got it on eBay, literally. And then
That's funny, man.
Yeah, I may be the only guy that has an ATM machine.
I like your style. Yeah.
Actually, I found out that this particular model, this is a Triton RIL 2000. If you press a couple of buttons, it goes into admin mode, which this is how mine works. And I thought that only mine worked like that. And then today I found one on the street and I did that. It went into admin mode. I was like, wow.
Okay, here. You're now on YouTube saying that. So, all right. Cool.
So I was like, wow, this is amazing. Anyways, so the idea is for every product that is disposed to be studied and then to be weighted and to test the temperature of the product. And why? Because if a product weighs much more than when empty, then most likely it's because the consumer did not like that product and the manufacturer would like to know that. So that's, and of course, the more sensors we have, the more data we can capture, and the better idea we have that people like or dislike this product. So that's the main idea.
Yeah.
And for
And
that,
I have seen like there is precedence for doing these smart circling recycling one. There are successful startups and companies that are doing JETSON based like high speed sorting and precision. And it's not easy, but I think you're on the right track with doing things like this. And then the idea being like it scans what bottle or piece of refuse comes in, and then like you collect like the data from like how much of these items is, and then that eventually makes its way back to the manufacturer of like how much is it actually getting used. Is that correct?
yes, and it incentivizes recycling because today I'm a biologist myself, so I care about the environment. After that, I did a master's in computer engineering. That's what pays my bills. But I feel that the entire recycling industry does a lousy job. Only 6% of all the plastic in the world is recycled. So 94%. So this is basically a 94% wasted. Wasted market. So for me, that's a failure. So this recycles in the way that it identifies a previously trained product and throws it inside specific bin. Inside that ATM, there are actually two plastic bins inside. One is for the products that were trained, and the others for the rest. And it doesn't care if it's plastic, paper, or whatever. It cares that this is the product of manufacturer XYZ, and XYZ will give you some benefit if you recycle each product in one of these bins, instead of just that triangle thing, recycle me, that they put in the back of bottles.
So to loop back to like the technical side of this, what are you using now?
Yeah,
like
enough
YOLO
with
or
corporate.
I think you had like a demo video of this thing actually put together. So let's look at that. I think we all get the concept, and like the ecological, environmental applications of AI. I think everybody here is like pretty into, and there's like humanitarian stuff with like assistive devices helping people, but then we got to like save the planet too with all this. So
yeah. I don't know if you can see the black screen you saw before.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. I have a demo that I created for both the Xbox 360 and the One. The 360 seems to work less worst. So bear with me if this thing turns off, because I'm actually upgrading this. This is a JETSON Nano, and for some reason it turns off by itself. So I'm hoping
you need a bigger. If this is the original Nano, you need a better power supply for. But at this point, just
that's a 4 amp power supply.
Even so, like they're not all. Chitoku could speak to this. We've done like extensive testing of all of them. They're not all even though they might say they're 4 amps. They might not have like the wires on them. I don't know. They're not. There have been specific ones that we had recommended, which like lesson learned. We ship power supplies with all the dev kits again. So. Okay, anyways, so this is like using YOLO V5.
Yeah. This is YOLO V5 by Ultralytics. And then fusing layers, it takes a long time to, okay. Hi, Costa dispose now. It went to the database and it checked, okay. And you see that already. Okay, while it turned off. I told you that.
Okay.
That happens.
Like you said.
So,
all right.
So let's try to turn it on again, and hopefully that, but what's really important is you can see all this text, and then this came from the server. It goes to the server. It sends the barcode of the product that was identified, along with the ID of the user that disposed of this thing, and the server sends back all this information. And maybe I can show something here. Give me a sec.
I think we get there was a good question in the chat, like what if it's like a a plastic soda bottle that's been crushed or deformed, or like how is, considering this is a garbage can essentially, how are you identifying this like influx of things people are just throwing in, you know?
Yeah, well, that's a challenge as well. I tried in the past. It's terrible. That's so theoretically, this is not a regular garbage can that you will find on the street, for example. It has a lot of electronics, so it's gonna short circuit with the rain. So this is supposed to be receiving quality garbage, if I may. So stuff that.
Well, another thing, like you might not need a detection model. You might just want to look towards like the classifiers. Like if you got a camera, it's looking at like the stuff coming in. It just does like classification, or does the clip-based vector database matching that like we've seen works like quite reliably and is very easy to add new items to. I don't know, like, do you actually need the bounding box info for the stuff coming in?
No, I don't need it. I just
they just use a classifier.
I just need the percentage, like if it's 85% that it is a product and the name of the product. Then
then you'll have.
I don't need to show a screen. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You have a much easier time just doing image classification than you will with detection. Because if you want to do detection ROI with all these different products, you're either going to have to train YOLO on the different products or do primary detection with secondary classification of those cropped bounding boxes. But if you just train, like if the camera's zoomed in enough that you just do a classifier or do like the clip similarity search, that is like really easy to add new items continually into like your database for. So okay, well we're a little bit over time. I think that is a great concept, Alvaro, and you can link us to like the video and the demo here. If you need any help getting like your next Jetson set up, let us know. Speaking of which, the Jetpack 6 GA update should be coming out like any day now. I was told just last night from the software team, like it should be out either like tomorrow or Friday. I believe we've solved all the blocker issues for that. So at that point, I'll be like adding another Jetson to our build farm for Jetson containers. And I don't think all the containers should not need rebuilt. They should all just continue to work now, because I think we'd all kind of gotten used to like with Jetpack 4 era containers that like it needed rebuilt every single time you upgraded Jetpack, which is contrary to the whole containerization aspect. But now it's like, unless you really need it, we don't need to go through and rebuild all the containers just because it's Jetpack 6. I'll go through and test. It's actually much more pertinent to start rebuilding things for the latest CUDA and TensorRT. Okay, and TensorRT 10 is now officially released too, and that's in Jetson containers. So it's not as like we don't need to necessarily rebuild for new Jetpack L4T, but when you need it, you want to rebuild for new CUDA 12.4 and TRT 10, and like the TRT LLM is still ongoing. But yes, in the future, we'll be able to mix and match, like say, okay, well, what we already have running on CUDA 12.2 is fine, but new stuff comes out for CUDA 12.4. You can have two containers running alongside each other. That's like fine. So, but at minimum, like, yes, I will get Jetpack 6 GA set up and retest everything on there. And obviously, like, everybody should move from like developer preview to the GA. You can give it a little time to like settle in and make sure there aren't any problems like flashing your systems or whatnot. But yes, it will be highly recommended to update on it. And then there will be a time where like I'm still building for Jetpack 6 DP, the R36.2, but then everything going forward would be on like the GA build. And so we'll see to that. Any questions before we go?
Ask. Will the Isagros come out on a Jetpack 6 at the same time?
Yes, that is supposed to be very soon as well. So that's another thing we're tracking. I don't know the exact date on that, and everything like I'm saying here is open to like engineering slips or SQA, or like we have very extensive software testing before all this goes out. But will you need to reflash for the GA release? I don't think so. I think we would just be able to, I mean, don't quote me on that, because I always like reflash and set up like new devices that way. But I don't think so. And Chitoku has also been working on a tool that should help migrate the Orin Nano just based on SD card without needing to use SDK manager to like reflash all that, because we understand for like Orin Nano, people like they don't want to deal with like SDK manager, because they probably don't even have another Linux PC to run SDK manager on. So he's been like working with the engineering team on a QSpy tool for that. So yeah, hopefully you can just apt dist upgrade it, but when in doubt, reflash the thing and back up your data. Yeah.
Is there a reason why the SDK manager only runs on like x86?
There's a lot of reasons for that, not only of which is the low level flashing protocols that go over USB. And obviously, like, it's annoying not to be able to run flash.sh or SDK manager within a virtual machine or other things like that. But it is, a lot of it's like the timing protocols of all like the flash to EEPROM and the really low level firmware stuff that all makes it work reliably amongst, all of the Jetson units that have shipped out into the field. In the future, yes, we are looking into like self-flashing capabilities, and I hope over time it has gotten easier. But it is also interesting that over time, when Jetson started with the TK1, it was just like, hey, here's the L4T BSP, you download that, run flash.sh, set it up, here's CUDA, here's cuDNN, go install those all yourself, right? And then it eventually got to be like, well, that's like a lengthy error-prone process. So then we started the Jetpack tool, which was like one little GUI screen, and you selected everything, and like that was pretty straightforward and worked well. And then over time, as these SDKs got bigger and bigger, and now the SDK manager is much more than just Jetpack. It does Drive and a lot of the Mellanox stuff and the DPUs, the data center processing units, and all of that too. But now, funny enough, that cuDNN and TensorRT team are back to independently publishing packages for Jetson just on their website. For those of us, the power users that are using containers, the automated, and want to install our own latest CUDA version, like Johnny's always pinging me on LinkedIn, like CUDA 10.01 RC2 just dropped. I like need the latest build for it or whatever. Like, yes, you don't even need SDK manager at all anymore. We can all just go through and go like the old way, which is like how it's still done on desktop. And so, yeah, if you don't actually want to go through all of that, you can just use flash.sh, and we still provide, like, if you just search, Linux L4T, or like, let me give you the actual page. It's not called Linux for Tegra anymore. It's called Jetson Linux now. If you look at that page, okay, that is just what gives you the BSP, and you run flash.sh or init-rd on that, and it'll just give you your blank Jetson Ubuntu with like nothing on there. Or even more so, like, you can install the Ubuntu server ISO or something like Red Hat or SUSE Linux or whatever, and then you can go install the CUDA repos on top of that. Any other questions or things people want to chat about, or like what our direction is here, or things you need, features you want? Now's the time.
Actually, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think you mentioned, well, if you need some help from NVIDIA or something, or maybe I want to believe that I heard that, but well, if I did hear it well, can you guys, what kind of support can you guys offer, or do you want?
Yeah, like, my daily thing is like, I'm on the forums like all the time checking like problems that come in, and like that is where we work on things. So if you are to have some like, for example, you should go on there now and be like, my Jetson Nano keeps powering off. Why is that? I have such and such power supply, and we'll hop on there. If not me, because we have like camera, like the camera guys, the hardware engineering guys, the ones that help you design the actual board, the Linux kernel experts. I'm like the AI guy on there. Okay. So, and this is important because I do not know the answer to everybody's question. That form, it's like the bug system. It automatically gets routed to the correct engineer to answer your question. And if it's an actual issue, then we file bugs internally that go to the even like the lower level teams that are actually working on this more so. So it's actually very important that you post on there, because then it all gets captured, and then the next person that comes along can just Google it and read it that way. But yeah, absolutely. And even for higher level things, be like, my YOLO detector isn't like working for this. What can we do? Even though like our Jetson's demographic is not like training, it just so happens we get, since we're at the edge and at the final deployment thing, like everything behind there is like fair game. So we're happy. Let's do a rag. Yeah. So that is something that we should look more towards in the next 2 weeks, is building out these rag samples. Okay, because Chichoku has the Llama index. I know Seed Studio is working on more rag sample, text-based rag, because we already have the multimodal rag, but people want to like chat with their text docs or PDFs or whatnot. And it is funny, on the forums, we have started, like, they've been working on a forum bot essentially to help people with a more rapid response time on there. And it just basically indexes the entire database so far, and against all the Jetson docs. And that Llama index sample, you can load the Jetson docs into that and talk about like things like, you know, what's the static IP address over micro USB or whatever that you want to do. And obviously, like, people are very interested in RAG because that's almost immediately applicable to everybody or everybody's business. You know, it's very low hanging fruit to integrate, and there are great existing tools out there for doing on that all today. And Llama Index is like very easy to use and get started with. So okay, just to round this out and recap, unless there are any more questions, our plans for the next 2 weeks. Now that Mosaico, we've got Wyoming all working, we need to like all hop in and do like more testing on that. Okay, we want to start higher level agent integration into Home Assistant through some avenue. I think for now, yes, Mike, we will just use the conversational API, even though it might be going away. It's so simple to look into. It's not like we're going to waste lots of engineering effort to like do that. It's all just kind of under the covers will work anyways. And in the background, people start playing around with this function calling, testing that. I will be integrating more of those functions into the system for doing things like NanoOwl or image generation or configuring the vision language model. There are going to be more updates coming out for the vision language models and Live Lava on video feeds is what I'm working on currently. So it will be like video summarization or change detection based on a sequence of video frames as opposed to just one. And then we'll be able to implement that like virtual sensor, Mike, that sits on top of the system and just like outputs data into it. But otherwise, like, I'm sure if the past 2 weeks are an indication, 2 weeks from now there will probably be like major changes again with like whatever the projects going on are on new models. And like, I actually kind of hope it slows down a little bit soon because it's a lot just to keep up with. And I don't go off and try like every last model. It's just the major ones that come out. But like the Llama 3 and the Phi 3 triggered a massive retraining of everybody's fine tunes and the VLMs. And so like, it's a lot right now to deal with that. And I think before long, we will be fine tuning our own models for doing all this, which will be really exciting. So yeah, start going off and like building stuff with this and doing your own agents, because that's where the rubber really meets the road with this. And I think we have most of the core features that we need now in order to do that. Like, we've got good ASR, TTS, the LLMs, function calling, the VLMs, all of that's in there. Nice, easy to use in Python, high performance. We're at like peak throughput on OREN. So now is like we got to put our prompt engineering hats on and go out about and doing it. And I think we just start like recording all of our chats with this thing. It'll be interesting to see what we can train on all of that. So, all right. Well, thank you guys so much. We're only 15 minutes over today. If anybody needs anything, please feel free to get in touch anyway. The next meeting will be Wednesday, May 15th at the same time. I will post the recording to this later tonight. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys later. All right. Thanks so much. Thanks to Mieszko and Alvaro for demoing today. That was great. And if anybody wants to demo next time or has some projects they want to show off, please don't hesitate. That's a great part of the group. So, all right. Thank you guys. Take care.
Thank you guys. Take care.
You guys.
Bye-bye.